Are your rental properties making money? And is there a better solution? Stay tuned. Welcome to this week's edition of NoteSchool TV, and we are glad to have you today. Let's do a little housekeeping before we get started. Number one, make sure and like this lesson that we're going to do today. Number one. Number two, make sure and subscribe to the NoteSchool TV channel if you have not already done so. And number three, make sure and hit that bell notification bing so that you will be notified every Wednesday right before we're about to go live. When? At 11:05 Central Time. Share this with your friends, everybody you know, especially if you know anyone that's got rental properties, right? Or maybe thinking about that. And if you want to know more about what we do at NoteSchool, simply go to noteschool.com/TV. Again, noteschool.com/TV. And with that, let's bring on our Chief Visionary Officer, founder of NoteSchool, all-around good guy, Mr. Eddie Speed.
Good morning, Joe.
Good morning. Good morning.
Well,
it's summertime in the South.
It is, and we are getting to talk today about something that I'm spending a huge amount of my time and energy, as are you, and that is, what do you do with this rental scenario?
Yes.
And we're going to talk about it and how it's affecting people. And so, yeah, we're gonna have a little working session today.
Yeah, we are.
All right, well, let's pull some slides up and roll the tires on it.
Let's do it. You guys are going to love this.
All right, thank you. So our presentation today, I called it the Great Rental Escape, right? And the reason we did is because this is how sophisticated professionals in the business are achieving 3 times the returns they are on their rentals. And it's doing it without tenants and toilets and, you know, all that stuff, right? Time drain, life suck. And so it's kind of a different way of thinking. We were approached in this along the way, and it's a different way of thinking. So the first thing I'm going to say is a legal disclaimer here, and that is that none of the information that we're giving you today are legal or accounting advice. They're just simply for educational purposes, but we think it's very good information and very timely and very relevant to the market. So just know that if you have to hire an attorney, an accountant, we may talk about those things a little bit today, but we're just doing it for educational purposes. So let's talk about where the rubber meets the road. This is Monica, right? And Monica is a NoteSchool member. And Monica, here's the thing about it. Monica, not Veronica. I know this lady like really well.
Yes.
Monica she did all the things right in life. Like, she worked for corporate America, and she was an executive with Verizon. She had the 401k. She did all this kind of stuff. Yeah. And she had an opportunity for early retirement. And that all sounds really good, but the market had changed, and she wasn't where she needed to be. And because here's the thing, she needed a stable investment, and she had a bunch of rent houses.
Yep.
She was doing rentals. And so she came along, and she figured out this note model was better than rentals. This was just her life experience. It was her discovery. But Monica represents a lot of people here. Some of you are half Monica's age. Some of you are in Monica's situation exactly. And some of you have a little bit different story to it. But the rental property model was pretty much a consistent story that we saw throughout. But Monica definitely experienced this. Yes. And the reason this happened, Joe, is since the virus, everybody, real estate went up in value. Call it double, right? Real estate kind of doubled in value. But the problem is while rents went up, rents did not pace with expenses.
That's right.
And Monica found out she had a house that was making a lot more money.
Worth a lot more money.
but it wasn't making more money, right?
That's right.
It was making the same money, but it was worth more money.
Yep.
It's a little bit like, if you had money in the stock market and your stock market went up last week, well, did you get a check for that? No, you don't get paid to sell the stock until you sell it, right? And so Monica woke up with this situation and realized that and these were all changes, since the virus. So Monica goes back and runs an analysis and really looks at her properties. And it's kind of like this. That house that she would have owned in 2018, it rented for $1,400 a month. Okay. If she rented it today, it would rent for $1,800. So it did go up in rents, right? The rent did go up a little bit, right? But here's the problem. Her expenses in 2018 were $500. Like she was, this was taxes and insurance and maintenance and, all those things we now know cost more money, right? And so a result of it is, she was paying just a smaller percentage of her rent was going to pay the bills. And now a bigger chunk of her money to pay her bills goes towards just paying for the house, right? Paying for the, so she can now rent it out and paying for the taxes and insurance and the maintenance and the painters and the electrical guys and the air conditioning and all that kind of stuff, right? So the reality is she was netting $900 in 2018, and she's netting $900 today. Well, Joe, that's a lot. Your dollar bill won't buy the same money it would buy in 2018, will it?
Nope.
And so she was going backwards in where she thought she was going to be in her retirement. Now, what Monica then figured out was, I'm just normal. There's nothing abnormal about my story. 50% of the money going out in expenses and $1,800 in rent, that's just normal. That's just everybody's story. That's not just, she realized that she wasn't in some unique situation, right? And so you go back and you look at that and you look at these two houses and you have a situation where, that house in 2018, that little rent house there in Dallas, is worth $125,000.
Right.
And that rent house today is worth $250,000. So the good news is, Joe, if you took it what it was worth and what it's worth today, you had an increase in value.
Yeah.
Your house went up in value, right? And so good news. Your house went up in value. But it was making $10,800 a year in 2018. And that was about 8% of what the property was worth. So that 8% is basically just saying $10,800 divided by what it's worth. And it was 8%.
Yeah.
Okay. That was true in 2008. But see, Joe, it's increased in value double.
Right.
And it's still renting the net income after you pay everybody to, not your gross income, but your net income, right? It increased $10,800. And the problem is, Joe, that's half of the net income as a percentage.
Yes.
That's half of where you were. Half as much money. Monica says, that doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
This is going to mess me up and where I'm wanting to go. So if you really look at this number and you think about it, then in 2018, she was making 8.3% technically, right? If you took her income of $10,800, now the house has gone up in value. Yahoo. But it's making 4.3% because, this is the value, right? And this is the net money. How much you net out of it after you pay everybody, right? Sure. And so Monica says this isn't what I wanted. And you've heard it said a lot of different ways, Joe, but I like to say inflation drank your milkshake.
Yeah, that's right. Could be a milkshake or a margarita, right? There's half of it, a third of it there. Yeah.
So when Monica got involved with us, then all of a sudden she starts looking around and she says, well, something must be wrong about my story. Well, this was in Memphis, Tennessee, right? And, and so it was this was true in Memphis, and look at her numbers, right? And 3.6%. Once again, this is net income divided into what the house is worth, right? This is over in the Raleigh area, right? In near Raleigh, North Carolina, over in Cary. And same thing. That's not a good number. Down in Florida, it wasn't a good number, right? And in Missouri, it wasn't a good number, right? A little better number, but still not good. And in the Houston area, Humble, Texas, down the Houston, Texas area, and it was a little better, but it was average about 4%.
Yeah.
And Monica said, this doesn't work. So Monica woke up and said, I want to do this transition that Note School teaches. I want to end up with notes and not rentals. And I want consistent monthly income. I want to get paid for what I should be getting paid for. And then that's going to let me transition my life. That's going to let me move to where I want to live, be around my family. I want to help others succeed. She's a very go-giver person. And she said she feels like this life transition is what let her get to where it's going to get. And Joe, I'd just say that we're just lucky as heck. Neither one of us could take credit for some brilliance. No. We've been doing this industry a long time. We saw the problem and we saw a solution, and we're just lucky as heck to get to lead people like Monica to a different way of life.
And Eddie, we've got 50 more examples like you just showed there, right? And that's what we're seeing, right? Yeah, her rent went up $400, but her expenses go way up. And then your house is doubled, but you got this money tied up, and this is the solution, right? So whether you do have rentals, or if you don't have rentals, or if you're thinking about getting rentals, stay tuned.
Look, Monica had rentals.
She did, absolutely.
Some people are considering rentals.
Yes.
And some people are just considering, what should I do with my money today? So you got people in different stories and different situations. Monica had rentals. So converting those rentals and becoming, the lender versus the landlord, that made sense to her.
Yes.
But for some people, they're contemplating it.
That's it.
Like they haven't quite done it yet. They're just thinking about it. And they're like, wait, are you telling me this is more profitable than I was thinking I was going to do rentals? No, you really probably ought to look at this. And then some people are like, heck no, I already have friends at rentals and they don't want to go deal with the brain damage. Yeah. So like some of you are Monica at different areas of her life, because she wasn't born with rental property. She just started it. Right.
So because that's what she thought. That's what she was taught, right? I mean, how many people have we trained over the years that go, God, I wish I'd have found out about this 10, 20, 30 years ago. I mean, we hear it every day.
Here's a question, Joe. Who makes more money on the rental? The landlord at about 4%.
Yeah.
Or the bank or the lender, right? Whoever made the mortgage loan at about 7.5%.
That's it.
I'm not a genius in math, but I know that 7.5 is more than 4.
You can't earn 4 and pay 7.5. It doesn't work.
Yeah. So and what do we have here? Well, when you're the landlord, you have taxes, right? You got to pay the taxes, and you've got insurance, and all of those have gone up drastically, right?
Yep.
And then you got repairs and maintenance, and and then you got upset tenants, and unfortunately you get to answer for all of those. And when you're the bank or you're the lender, and you're saying, well, what does he get? He gets a check every month. You don't call him with tenants and toilets, right?
Right.
And so that's the truth. And that, it could be a bank or a mortgage company or whoever it is. But do you know, Joe, that you could be the lender on your house?
Absolutely.
You could be the lender and loan money on your house.
That's
it. So here's the house. Here's the house that we looked at. And so today we're going to say that you could do seller financing on all of these asset classes, right? Every one of these you could seller finance. But specifically today, we're going to focus on rent houses. Okay. So here's the dilemma, Joe. I got a rent house.
Mm-hmm.
I could keep it as a rental, or I take the same house and I could just owner finance it and sell it to a buyer. But I'm going to also loan them the money to buy it.
That's it.
Right. So I'm not going to rent it anymore. I'm going to seller finance it. This is exactly where Monica was. It's exactly where she landed. Okay. So we're going to sell the house and finance the buyer, right? We're going to carry their payments over time plus interest instead of her having to go to find somebody else to loan her the money on the house. Joe, I'll loan you the money, so to speak, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So you can first sell your current rentals and be the bank or be the lender, right? And then the second thing we're going to show you in this exercise today, what Monica then learned was a big fact, is that you could then use a leveraging technique, or you could see, everybody knows if you have a rent house, you could borrow money against a rent house, right? But very few people know if you have a note, how you would go get some of your money back.
Right. Recapitalize.
We're going to show you how to do that. Right. So I get to teach this for some of the hotshot real estate masterminds in the country. So these are call it the top 500 house buyers, and about 3 or 4 different masterminds, smart people, good people, but they face this exact same problem that Monica was facing. In fact, Joe, I won an award earlier this year, and they're like, "Oh, Eddie," like, I was actually saying the same thing a year and a half ago, and Monica kind of caught on to that then. But once again, people were listening now because of the economy and the market, and one things just quite honestly were different, right? So that was our crazy picture, by the way, Joe.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So here's the house, and you could rent it. But what if you took the same house and you said, let's do the other side. Let's look at what me carrying the financing for the buyer, or carrying the payments for the buyer, including interest.
Right.
And so we've heard it called a lot of different things. And so if we use a term today that sounds different, we use the word notes, right? Well, a note is just really where you're financing the buyer. You can call it seller financing. You can call it carrying a first mortgage. You can call it paper in a deal. You can call it being the bank. Like, all of those kind of mean the same thing. So don't let us confuse you, right? It's just this is where you just decide, I'm going to be a lender instead of being a landlord. Right?
And we're going to do the things that a bank will be that a bank does to make sure that borrower is a good borrower, right?
Yeah, this is what Note School really helps people how to do, is how to structure the loan, the terms of the loan, the terms of the sale, and how to underwrite it, and how to we teach people how to do this really correctly, and that's what we've helped Monica learn how to do, right? Absolutely. So the idea here is the house was worth $250, so I'm going to sell it for $250,000, and I'm going to get a good down payment here. I'm going to get a market condition of 15% down.
Right.
That's the buyer. So the buyer now is paying 15% down. Okay, he's paying a 15% down payment. And then I'm going to be the bank. I'm going to seller finance them, and I'm going to carry that at what are called non-QM rates. and the average rate for that is about 10.5%.
Right.
That makes my mortgage payment that I'm receiving every month $1,943 a month. Now, Joe, I was getting $1,800 in rent.
Yes.
Right. So you're saying, okay, Eddie, you're getting a little more money. I'm renting it for $1,800, but now I'm getting a payment of $1,943, so up $143 more a month. What people don't realize about seller financing is there are some tax hacks, and we're not going to get into all of those today, but there are definitely some tax hacks with carrying owner financing that most people don't know. And there's Note School, as you progress, will teach you some more specific details on how those works. There's also multiple exits. There's different ways you can do this. There's not just one way to do it. And the problem is the industry problem, which Monica figured out totally, is that her equity was trapped. Right. And if you seller finance, you're now getting paid for your equity, right? Your equity is the difference between what it's worth versus what you owe.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, Eddie, to get that equity out, if you're going to keep it as a rental, you've got to go out and borrow money against it, paying 7.5% while you're getting 4%. And then your numbers really don't work anymore.
Yeah. The bottom line is if your house is making 4% and the lender is charging you 7.5%, you're going to have to owe a lot less money than the house is worth.
That's it.
Right. So let's do a comparison. And so we're going to do a comparison of rent versus seller financing. And there's your $1,800 that we keep talking about. And there's your new mortgage payment, like you're the bank and they owe you a mortgage payment. They owe you a mortgage payment every month of $1,943. But see, you got expenses with a rent house and you don't have expenses with a note. Right?
That's right.
I own the mortgage. I don't pay your taxes. I don't pay your insurance. I don't pay to have the repairman come. I don't pay for a new air conditioner, right? And so you net $900 on the rental, but you net $1,943 if you carry the financing. Joe, that's $1,043 more money.
Yeah.
Right?
Much less stress or no stress and
more money. I want to emphasize this isn't just money you get every month. This is more money than you were getting before. Right? Because people say, well, Joe, but you own the mortgage and if the house goes up in value, you don't get paid for that. And I say you get paid for it now.
That's right.
Let's just do a comparison. Let's just look at the two types and let's just look at what people want. Like you got a rent house or you own a first mortgage on a house, right? First of all, are rent houses, do they have stress associated with them?
Absolutely.
They do. They do. They're not making as much money as they were. So you have a low cash flow, right? And you don't have a lot of cushion. In other words, what's the tenant got at risk? And what do you have at risk?
Everything.
Right? But let's now look at a first mortgage. Less stress. I don't think probably anybody on this training today or this podcast would call it differently. More cash flow. Yeah, way more cash flow. Call it more than 2 times the cash flow. And then a better cushion because you see when you carried the mortgage, the buyer made a down payment.
Yeah.
The buyer made a down payment on the house, and that now is his money at risk, right? So for you being the lender, he gave you a cushion. How big's the cushion does the tenant give you, Joe? Not so good?
No bueno.
All right. Let's talk about the stress factor. Okay. Fact is, Joe, I'm going to say that this is a big scalability factor. You can do more deals with less headaches. you can own 55 rentals versus 1,000 notes for the same work. So the same work, you pick which side you want.
And Eddie, this is what the sophisticated investors today are doing, is saying, wow, this is a big thing. Well, and it's a lifestyle thing.
You know, number one reason people show up at Note School or any other kind of thing in the world is they say, I want my time back.
Yeah.
Right? The time's the one thing you can't buy, Joe.
You cannot.
So let's look at the so this was less stress. Okay. Now this is more cash flow, right? So you got a $250,000 rental, you get $900 a month. By the way, if you have a mortgage on this house, you get less. Right? So if your mortgage payment is $700, you make $200 on it. This calculation to come up with the net income does not include your mortgage payment and interest on your mortgage. This is how commercial and income properties are calculated. These are industry standards that we're using to calculate this.
Levels the playing field as far as reaching the value of the property. It's only worth what the income will support.
Two things about being the bank. First of all, look at the down payment. Okay, that's today money, right? Because you got a down payment. And then look at this. And Joe, this is over 30 years.
That's it.
So this isn't like some short-term cash flow. This is big-time cash flow. Right. And if you think about it, you got the same capital out. You're earning 2 or 3 times the net income that you are on a rental. And guess what you don't get? You don't get maintenance calls and tenants and toilet calls, right? You don't get that. So let's talk about the cushion, the third thing that we talked about. So you sell this house, it's $250,000. And there's a cushion because the buyer paid 15% down. He paid $37,500 down.
Today money.
Whose money is at risk there, Joe? Your money or the buyer's money?
That's going to be the buyer's money.
Yes. So there is a cushion. There is a cushion that's lowered when you're the bank. So because you have a first mortgage and you took some of your money off the table and now the buyer's put some of his money on the table, right? So there's definitely a cushion factor with it. And really, if you look at the market today, Joe, there's really 2 or 3 things. First of all, traditional banks have tightened their lending criteria. This is an industry fact, right?
Over the last 4 years, yes.
Yeah, 40% of potential buyers cannot qualify for the conventional mortgage. So yes, rates have been a factor, but equally a factor has been tightened underwriting. And then you have this pool of qualified buyers that really are perfect for seller financing. We love the fact that we can give them home ownership, and they love us because we're willing to lend them money on a make sense transaction. And Joe, let me say the most important thing. These are just missed buyers. These are not people with problems, right? But just because you've been left behind doesn't mean that you don't deserve an opportunity to get better. And we just think we're really fulfilling and serving a market, serving people, people that want to buy a house, but they don't quite fit perfectly.
Well, it's gig workers, it's contract workers, it's contractors and the guys that mow yards and build houses and real estate agents and all of the folks there, I-10 borrowers.
All right, this is an index. We didn't make this up. This came from the Mortgage Bankers Association. So this is their index. We're just showing you what it looks like. And this was, right at the time, this was when the virus started, Joe, and they were basically at 185. Okay. And then today they're at 95, right? The result of this is, Joe, this shows you buyers that are left behind. Wonder if one of those people that were left behind would be a perfect candidate for Monica to seller finance.
Absolutely.
That's the thought.
And that's the reality for sure.
So why does all this matter? Well, the reason I think all this matters is when mortgage lending is cheap and easy, then there's always a little sliver of people like you and I, Joe, that would do creative financing or seller financing, but not a high percentage of the market.
Right.
But let there be a problem, and then we think that seller financing comes in and fills a big gap. That red represents the void in the market, right? Fills the gap, right? As we like to say. And so we think a big gap that's filled here is that you could offer seller financing. And Monica, in her case, said, I know that's the truth. I know that would change my life. What if I said, Monica, you can net $900 a month or $1,950 a month? Which one would you like better? Like, and which one do you think would let her get to her next point of her life?
Well, that's it. Plus, let's don't forget the $37,500 down payment that you receive.
Yeah, I mean, you got that money up front plus increase your cash flow. So here's Emily and Adam. Now you notice Emily and Adam are younger, right? Emily and Adam, you know, their story is they were successful real estate investors. Sometimes we have people listen to this, Joe, and they're like, well, I've never done a whole bunch of property deals, or I don't like, okay, well, let me say this. Yeah. If you're less successful doing real estate, possibly you're less successful in managing rentals.
Yeah.
And this was their frustration is their income had essentially evaporated down to almost nothing that they were netting every month on their rentals. And they owned a good many rental properties, not one or two. So this is young, smart couple doing the right things. They're conservative. They did all the right things. And then they came to me, they came and hung out with me and they says, Eddie, we need a better cash flow. Our cash flow is evaporated. We're not covering our monthly expenses. And so for them, they did essentially what Monica did. And that is they switched from being just a landlord to switched over. And now they didn't sell all of their rentals, but they sold enough rentals to all of a sudden change their future. And they went back up. And I think the number's about $15,000 a month.
Yeah, it is.
That they made some way in Notes, and they've been on NoteSchool TV, and so we've had them on there, and you kind of see their story and stuff. So the question is this question about waiting on your appreciation, and appreciation once again just simply means, you know, you have something that goes up in value, you know, like inflation is, you know, something goes up, right? So your property goes up in value. And we know that if you keep a house over a long period of time, it does go up in value. But, you know, what the argument is do I wait for it or can I get it now? Right? People say, well, if I keep a rental, I know it'll go up in value and I'll get more money. But we're saying, wait a minute, if you seller finance it, we're pretty sure you'll get the money now. Because if you seller financed it, you're going to get additional $50,000 the very first, an additional $50,000 the first year you sell it. First 5 years you sell it, you get additional $100,000.
That's right. Over the house, by the way, is not going to go up that much over. And by the way, Eddie, just for point of clarity, what we're talking about is the additional is the $37,500 down plus the $1,043 a month extra, and you total that up, and it's $50,016 first year.
Joe, here's what I did. I've had a money bucket over here. You got it? I'm holding a money bucket. I took the down payment and I put it in the money bucket. I took the additional monthly income that I get and I put it in the money bucket. These numbers right here represent how much money went into the money bucket.
How much more money went? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. So if I did a rent house over 30 years, it's $324,000. If I carried the loan and I was the lender, I seller financed the buyer, I carried the payments for him, then all of a sudden the income on it is $736,000. So Joe, I was weighing it out here, and do you know that $736,000 is more than $324,000?
A little bit, right? And so we wonder why the banks have the biggest buildings. I don't know.
Yeah. Who's got the biggest building in your town, right? The bank or the landlord?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it has First National Bank on the top of it. Right.
Yeah.
All right. So the second thing that Monica really realized and understood, first of all, this became selling her rentals and being the bank. That was a no-brainer, right? To her, that was a no-brainer. But then secondly, leveraging just simply means in terms of real estate, how can I get part of my money back? Right. I don't want to use something that's not some phrase that people aren't familiar with. Like if I buy a rent house, I can borrow money against the house and from the bank, I have to pay them back, but I borrow money against the house and I do get some of my money back. I don't have to pay all cash.
Right.
But what people don't realize is you can do the same thing with a loan, and that could go to pay off your existing mortgage or to reinvest your money. And whether you're Monica or you're Emily and Adam, then you're going to adjust what you do depending on your life story and your situation. But you could sell part of the loan. Remember, you got this money in down payment. So you take that's now a lump sum of money, right? But what you have, Joe, is you have this cash flow every month for a long period of time in the future, right? That's every month you get this payment, right? And you don't have to share it with anybody, but you could sell part of it. And you could then keep part of your monthly payment. Oh. That means, Joe, I could go get, if I had an underlying mortgage and then I had to go pay the mortgage company off.
Right.
Or I had to go do this with it or had to go do that with it. Like all of this stuff means that now I have flexibility. Right. Because I could go sell part of my payment on this note. And that's the kind of thing that Note School is really good at and teaches, because we bought tens of thousands of notes on where people have seller financed their property. They're collecting a payment every month, but they say, I need to get some of my money back. And Monica started realizing like, hey, how could that work? So Joe, I bet I know what you're thinking.
Yeah.
I bet you'd say like, I wonder if Joe and Eddie have a calculator like that could calculate this for me.
Yes.
Well, it's funny you say that. So here's a calculator where you can enter in the information about your rentals or enter in information about somebody else that has a rental or maybe a rental you're considering doing this with. And then it'll calculate some of these numbers for you. And then also it will calculate what seller financing could look like on the same house, including selling part of that loan.
That's right. And Eddie, let me ask you a question. So if we sell part of that loan and if you've got an underlying, you can pay that off and then it's free and clear, but then you can go and you can buy another loan or another loan and another loan, another note.
No, in order to do that, they're going to want to come to Note School and learn what buying a loan even means.
That's right. That's right.
And they're going to figure out that buying a loan probably has 3 times the cash flow of just renting the same, taking that same money and just buying a rent house. So I can say that if you want to earn 2.5 or 3 times or more the income that, like Monica, like Emily and Adam figured out, both started out as landlords. They did not start out as note people, right? They learned to be a note person because they learned it was a better path. So Joe, I'm going to take my phone here, right? And take my phone. And I'm going to pop that. I'm going to open it up and open up my camera just like I'm at a restaurant. And I'm going to get that QR code and that'll let me register for it. And it's going to then show me. And then the other thing along the way is this is also going to give me the opportunity to connect with Note School and say, hey, Eddie, now we're ready to come to this kind of like little master class, couple of hours. Let me see some more of this math. Let me understand more about what Monica was doing and now what she did do. So what Emily and Adam were doing and now what they do today. And so the idea here is we want to show you a simple path. Wash your hands of so many headaches.
Right.
How do you get more money? How do you get less headaches? And the answer is, it's just because of the economy.
Yeah.
It's more profitable to be the bank today or be the lender today than it is to be the landlord.
Yeah.
And so let us show you some paths that people are now figuring out at kind of alarming rates, that they're like coming to us saying, help us solve this problem. So that's what we do.
That's it. Problem solvers. Eddie, that was great. And guys, we appreciate it. Make sure and grab that QR code, get that calculator. If you have any questions, noteschool.com/TV. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to get you into one of our classes and show you just exactly what Note School can help you, show you, and help you build the wealth and the lifestyle that you really want to have. So until next week, and by the way, next week will be our monthly update, right? And the monthly update, we have a special guest, and you are not going to want to miss this lady because she is very, very smart. So thanks a lot for being here, Eddie. We'll see you later. Take care.
Thank you.